Outside the window, the endless ocean of space was completely silent, glittering with thousands of tiny, transparent star plates. Inside the cockpit, a soft, peaceful white light bathed the room. Sitting in the co-pilot's seat, Grog reached over and unbuckled his safety harness with a satisfying click. Instantly, he felt as light as a feather, his body gently lifting off the seat. A wide, exhilarated smile spread across his plastic face as his leopard-print loincloth floated freely around him, and the white daisy on his hat stood straight up in the weightless air. Pushing lightly off the armrest, Grog glided smoothly toward the windshield. In the captain's chair, REXY blinked his black printed eyes, watching his friend float in pure amazement. The giant T-Rex cautiously lifted his white-plated foot, realizing it didn't fall back down. Thrilled by this discovery, REXY yanked his massive tail out of the steering joint. Without an anchor, his heavy bottom instantly drifted up toward the ceiling, flipping his massive body completely upside down. He flashed a wide, tan-toothed grin, his tiny arms paddling wildly in the air like a dog happily swimming on its back. Next to him, the little teddy bear floated peacefully at the end of its seatbelt. Grog drifted by, casually plucking his floating gray wrench from the air, and warmly welcomed his big buddy to zero gravity. But all that floating works up an appetite, and Grog's stomach let out a low rumble. Remembering Lila's parting gift, he swam through the air, opening the storage hatch to pull out a square plastic container. It was time to fuel up on Lila's special chocolate. Hearing the word chocolate, REXY eagerly paddled over, his plastic tongue sticking out as he licked his lips in anticipation. Smiling, Grog used his wrench to pop the lid open, but he forgot one crucial detail. They were in a zero-G environment. With a loud pop, the lid flew off, and the sheer lack of gravity sent dozens of printed chocolate tiles erupting outward like a geyser. The chocolate pieces scattered in every direction, spinning and glittering under the cabin lights, turning the small cockpit into a delicious constellation. Grog's jaw dropped in horror as his lunch drifted away. But for REXY, his primal predator instincts kicked in. His dark eyes widened, his massive jaws opened wide, and with a powerful kick off the back wall, the T-Rex launched himself like a red torpedo straight into the chocolate cloud. It was like watching a living, breathing arcade game. With every snap of his jaws, a floating chocolate tile vanished, chomped to the left, snapped to the right, and spun completely upside down to devour two pieces at once. Grog floated in the corner, clutching his head in despair as REXY slaughtered their lunch with terrifying speed. Desperate, Grog kicked off the dashboard to save at least one piece. He reached out, his fingers closing in on a tile, only for a red blur to swoop in and snatch it right out of his hand, sending Grog spinning helplessly in circles. REXY's feeding frenzy continued as the final few chocolate tiles drifted toward the central console. Nearby, a black walkie-talkie had rattled loose from its mount and was floating right next to the treats. Blinded by hunger and moving at breakneck speed, REXY opened his cavernous mouth and swallowed the remaining chocolate, along with the black radio, in one massive gulp. REXY chewed lazily, swallowed hard, and rubbed his tan belly, letting out a satisfied sigh. Grog swam over, panting, scolding his greedy friend for eating absolutely everything. But as Grog glanced at the empty radio mount, a terrifying realization hit him. He pointed a trembling finger, asking where the main communications radio went. REXY just blinked innocently, throwing his tiny arms up in confusion. Suddenly, REXY's stomach began to digest. A deep rumble echoed from his belly. Instantly, the ship's overhead public address system broadcasted the stomach growl, amplifying it 100 times over into a deafening, thunderous gurgle. The giant digestive roar shook the cabin, triggering the ship's red and yellow audio LED lights to flash wildly in rhythm with REXY's digestion. Grog covered his ears in terror, backing away, while REXY's eyes bulged in pure panic. He let out a tiny hiccup. The ship's speakers blasted the hiccup back with the terrifying force of an explosion. Horrified, Rexy slapped his hands over his mouth, his tail tucked between his legs in shame. Realizing what had happened, Grog's shock turned into a twitching smile, and then he burst into hysterical, weightless laughter. He tumbled head over heels in the air, tears forming in his eyes, while a mortified Rexy turned away, hiding his face against the brick wall. Another thunderous rumble from the PA system only made Grog laugh harder. Finally wiping away a tear, Grog gently floated over and patted the T-Rex's tense red back. Rexy peeked out with one guilty eye. With a warm smile, Grog pulled his hand from behind his back, revealing the very last chocolate tile he had managed to save, offering it as dessert to his greedy co-pilot. Rexy's eyes lit up, his embarrassment forgotten as he gently took the chocolate. Grog wrapped an arm around Rexy's massive neck, the two of them floating upside down together. Looking out the giant windshield at the breathtaking purple and blue cotton nebulas, Grog whispered that gravity is what keeps their feet on the ground. But up here, floating weightlessly, they realize just how incredibly small they are in this vast, endless universe, and how lucky they are to drift through it together. Rexy rested his heavy head on Grog's shoulder, soaking in the absolute peace. Suddenly, Rexy let out a very soft, gentle burp. The ship's speakers instantly blasted a colossal, deafening roar, completely shattering the romantic atmosphere. The two friends looked at each other and burst into joyous laughter as the screen slowly faded to black. Snap! A bright, circular spotlight punched through the pitch-black screen, illuminating a pure white baseplate right in the center. Tiny, rhythmic clicking footsteps echoed out as Zippy, the glossy black Lego ant, strolled right into the spotlight. He looked straight into the lens, his big, innocent black eyes blinking sweetly. Rearing up, Zippy stood firmly on his hind legs. With his front legs, he proudly hoisted a special tile high into the air. It was a brilliant YouTube red brick, crisply printed with the words "like and subscribe" in stark white. Zippy nodded his head furiously, let out an incredibly cute, joyful squeak, and with a sharp click, the spotlight snapped off.